I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but in the suburbs in Pasadena, Sierra Madre,
Okay.
Okay.
and by two Colombian parents who were born and raised in Bogota, Colombia.
Wow.
So I always, when anybody asks me, where are you from? I always say I'm Colombian, even though I'm American, but
Yeah.
American Colombian. And we have a lot of pride in being Colombian. That's how we were raised. And even though we were raised in California, in Pasadena, we were raised very Colombian because I didn't have any American friends until I was in school, you know.
Yeah.
So we were surrounded by aunts and uncles and cousins, and with the Colombian food, with the Colombian music, with the Colombian culture in
Hmm.
America, you know. So first childhood home was in Sierra Madre. A lot of people don't know Sierra Madre is a small little city of like 10,000 people, just north of Arcadia and just east of Pasadena. Beautiful little mountain
Okay.
town. And honestly, probably the most ideal place to grow up. Like I always look at Sierra Madre and I always feel really, really good about, growing up there. Like that wasn't our first childhood home, but that's the one that I have the most memories of. So that's one that I'll talk about. But it was a single story. It was like a C-shaped house with
Really?
like a courtyard with the
Oh.
courtyard in the middle. So it was like a garage, and then you had an entrance into the house, but it didn't go into the house. It went into like a overhang, and it was exterior,
Uh-huh.
but it had the roof over it. And then you walk in, and there was a courtyard there, and then to the right was a kitchen, small little galley kitchen, and then I had the room in the front of the house, and then there was like a dining room, and then a living room in the middle of the house, of like if there was like a C, right?
Uh-huh.
And then in the back of the house was my sister, and then my parents' room, and they shared a bathroom. So I had the front of the house, which growing up when you're younger, was a little bit nerve wracking because it's like if you heard of anything, it was like in the front of the house. And I
Yeah.
had to,
Yeah.
like, there was times where like I'd had to run back to my parents, room scared. Like one time, my brother came to pick up my dad to take him to the airport at like 4 a.m, and he couldn't get a hold of anybody there. So there's no cell phones back then.
Yeah.
So he literally banged on my glass window at 4 a.m, and I almost like shot myself. I was so scared. Like I will never forget that. And I stood in the bed like this, and I was like, okay, what do I do? And then I just kind of crawled to my parents' house, and I was like, my heart was racing, and my mom was so pissed off. She was so mad at my brother. But anyway, that's a story of my childhood home. We had a really long driveway. We had a basketball court where I played a lot of basketball. We had a beautiful avocado tree that had a ton of avocados in a time where I didn't like avocados. I wish I liked them
Oh,
like I do now.
Oh no,
So I
what a
would eat
waste.
all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a waste, exactly. But it was a beautiful house, and I think it maybe like for both my mom and my dad and my sister, I think this was the probably like the prime time of our family. Like my parents are now divorced, but
Mhm.
we hosted a lot of parties there. My dad spent a lot of money putting beautiful palm trees, and he loved trees. So he spent a lot of money on trees, like tens and tens of thousands of dollars on trees. And we had a pool in the back, and we had an outdoor kitchen. So I'm very, very lucky to call this home 222 Ramona Avenue home for I think about 9 years of my life. And we go back and look at it. We have our handprints
yeah.
on the sidewalk right in front. So we'll go there and kind of reminisce. But yeah, it was an amazing home. And they haven't changed it. It's like, and it's kind of gone downhill. Like they haven't really
Yeah.
taken care of it, which is kind of sad.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's good. It's great memories in that home. So I'm excited to buy my own home in the future for my own family, and to have something similar for my kids as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really fascinating. A courtyard house.
The avocado tree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I think that's
avocado
one
tree
of
is
my
the one thing you
dreams.
zoom in on. Forget the
Right?
architect. Let's
I
talk
know.
about avocados.
But do
I
do you,
know.
do you think that house made you like? Do you think growing up in that house gave you kind of like a special relationship with buildings and homes in general, or is that something that came into your life a little bit later on?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say, to be honest, that I'm like a huge fan of architecture. I'm getting there, I think, over time. So I want to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I love the business of real estate.
Mm,
That's what I really love about real estate, just the business of it. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy, kind of building processes, building a team. Figuring out ways to market homes. But like, don't get me wrong, I love architecture. I mean, I just interviewed like William Hefner and Richard Mannion and Jesse Harrison at my office last week, and that was really fun. Um, but I mean, I I always grew up. I was very lucky that I never grew up in an apartment. I always
Yeah.
grew up in a house,
mm,
with a yard. And I really miss that, living in LA because I haven't lived in a home since I moved to LA in '09.
hmm.
So I've been homeless,
Right.
but in an apartment since '09. And I have a great apartment. It's awesome. But I think soon when, I get married and I have kids, I'm going to want a house for sure because there's something special about having a house, your own domain, your own space in a yard and, just kind of space to roam around.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that in the future.
I like that point. It's an interesting thing because if I think I grew up also in a single family house in Southern California, and
David doesn't like grass, so
but I don't like grass. So it's the front
Why?
yard. I just allergies. That's all it is. Nothing else. And I find it creepy. I don't like
Yeah.
knowing. I don't like not knowing what's in the grass. It disturbs me.
Okay.
So- but also, to be fair, the grass
Where
that
did you grow up and you grew up in SoCal, right? Was it Orange County?
Orange County, yeah,
Verify?
yeah, the
Okay,
city of
yeah.
Orange. But the
Cool.
grass we had in our front lawn was not like I don't know anything about grass. Like it wasn't the fine
it's kind of
grass.
coarse.
It
It's
was
not
very,
really
very
the one you
coarse
want to roll in.
and very bladey.
Yeah.
So it's not the most like soft. But it's an interesting point that I think myself, yourself, and a lot of like friends that I know grew up in houses, like typical suburban houses, kind of ranch style houses, especially in California. Maybe one, maybe two stories in some cases. But a lot of people now of that same generation, to your point, have not lived in a house since that time.
Yeah.
Living in apartments or condos at most, and then hopefully at some point they can have a house. But things have gotten so expensive, and it's a very different
Yeah.
living. I don't know if you know, but like in the space of urban design, for a period of time, and I think there's still this belief is that the suburban way of planning was dead because it takes up too much space for the amount of people that we need to house. And there's a lot of kind of reasonings behind that and why it would make sense. I have to say though, which I agree with, but I have to say like subjectively, if I envision my future self, I want a house. I want a house with a yard because I don't know if it's because I grew up that way, but it just, I forget how you put it, something like you're owning the space around you. There's something that feels nice about it. And there's some kind of,
I think
you
it's
can
the
breathe?
distance
I don't
from
know.
people,
The distance
No,
from
but it's
people?
true. Like I think when you get older, you kind of want your own, your own space, your own
Yeah.
portion of land. I mean, you also spend your life working. I feel like you want to feel like you're doing it for something that is yours. And when you live if you live in an apartment, you're still sharing everything with everyone around you. So that feeling goes away.
it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, the pride of ownership, especially if you have like a family. I mean, I think most of the buyers out there, I would say, 60 to 70% of the buyers out there are people that are either newlywed or they have a family, right?
Mm.
So that's, they want to have, their own little piece of land.
When you were growing up in that house, when you went to your friends' houses and things, did you realize that your house was a little bit more special and unique? I mean, it sounds a little bit atypical to have a courtyard. That is atypical for me, to be honest.
And an avocado tree.
Yeah. It's I mean, I never really thought it was weird, because I didn't know. I didn't know any better. But like now, like I very rare to see a house that has a courtyard,
Yeah.
And we hosted so many events in that courtyard, which is really cool, So there's so many memories of like parties and dancing and food and just family and friends there. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up because again, I I grew up very Colombian in an American society. So like growing up in that house, I had some friends. Our closest friends were our next door neighbors, Ashley and Kimberly and Blake. Blake was a kind of a pain in the butt, so like I didn't like hanging out with them. But Ashley and Kimberly were really, really fun. And Kimberly was like a tomboy, so we'd always hang out and we'd do stuff together. But no, I didn't really think that our house was any special. But I did know that like our family, like my mom and my dad, when they were married, it's like my mom's side of the family was pretty big. There's, she had 2 sisters and a brother, and her mom and dad, and they had kids. And then my dad's side also, he has 3 sisters and a brother.
Wow.
So their house was like the house for the parties, the college parties and the Christmas parties. Yeah. And if you've ever been to Colombia, we like to party, we like to drink and we like to dance and we like to have a good time. So, I think in that sense, I knew that it was special. And then when my parents got divorced, it was hard because it's like we didn't have that place to kind of congregate as a family.
The house that I grew up in definitely was not a hosting house. We didn't host a lot of things, but we had a similar kind of feeling. Actually, my grandparents' house up in the Bay Area in Sunnyvale, and that was always the big meeting spot. And it wasn't a unique house in any regard, but it's an interesting thing, the memories that get associated with a particular piece of architecture. Mm-hmm. And I remember the strange thing was when that house, when the family decided to sell it after my grandparents passed, one, that was a huge mistake financially, which still bothers me to this day. I don't know why we didn't hang on to that piece of property. Because this was like before they passed away, and it was listed for sale probably in... what apartment was it living in? It must have been
early 2010s.
Yeah, 2010 or something like that. So there's tech, 2012, but not like tech as it is now. Yeah. But anyway, when that house was listed, the agent, of course, recommended that we do some work to it, aside from clearing out, 60 years of storage stuff, like ripping out the carpet. And it turns out there was nice hardwood floors underneath, and then painting everything white. And the contrast between what the house was when my grandparents were alive and when they lived in it versus when it was listed really blew my mind. It was the same house. We didn't change any of the walls. We didn't change any of the windows or anything, but it was not the same place anymore. And it was pretty remarkable to see.
So they did kind of like a renovation of it, or
minor renovation. I mean, it was like tearing up the carpet and then just painting things white. I think that might have been
just
about it. But I think once you remove all the stuff, it was just you would almost not know it was the same place unless you like really paid attention.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I do a lot for my listings. We do a lot of that work, and I think it bodes well for the seller. They end up getting more money by doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
You ever have sellers come into their house after it's been painted white and they're like, oh my gosh, what happened to my home?
Or they're like, oh, actually, it looks pretty good now. I might not sell it.
Yes. The latter, for sure.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah.
They just needed a remodel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like whenever we do this, which is, I don't know, I would say maybe one of every 4 houses, the seller is like willing to like listen to the agent and do the work that they that we recommend. It always comes out stunning. Like we always, like we had the right stagers. It's like, we'll do like, very simple things. We're not doing anything major. So I'm not having my clients spend like over 80 or 100 grand. I mean, obviously it depends on the house size and the price range. But usually when it's done, they're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Why would I want to sell this? And we always get top dollar for it. I mean, it's a proven formula.
Yeah. Interesting. Like you just need to clean out your shit. That's all you need to do. You don't need to move. Just purge.
You just got to listen to your agent. That's what you got
to do. Yeah. Okay. So you're growing up, Colombian roots, Colombian family. You're in high school. When you're finishing high school, did you have a sense of what direction you were going to go career-wise? That's always the big thing when you're like a junior in high school. Choose the career you're going to do for the rest of your life as a junior in high school. This is like the what's expected of most American kids.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had no idea at all, and really with like my dad finished school at 5th grade. He stopped going to school in 5th grade. he moved here in his 20s, right? In his early 20s. My mom, she finished, high school, and then she moved here when she was 18. So they just said, go to college. And that's really it. They didn't really know what the process looked like or anything. They're just like, go to college. And so I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out, but like I had really horrible SAT scores, like really bad. Thank God I had really good grades in school. I played soccer as well. So going into college, I only, applied to two schools, Cal Poly Pomona and UC Riverside. And the reason why I went to UC Riverside instead of Cal Poly is because they were just starting a new Division I soccer program. And two of the players that were on my club team got recruited to the team there. So I literally had no idea what I was going to do after college. I was like taking one day at a time. So yeah, I just was like, all right, like my parents are going to pay for college and I'm just going to go. And that's really it. My dad really wanted me to be an engineer. Oh, yeah. I had nothing, no background in engineering. He just thought that was the cool thing to do, or just like a good career path for me. Yeah. And, I would, always listen to my dad. All right, cool, Dad. I'll go to, I think it was like pre-engineering because I didn't have the grades or the SAT scores to get into the engineering program. So I had to go to like a pre-engineering program, which is like take a couple more courses. Yeah. But when I started at UCR and I took like my first like college level calculus class, I was like, done. There's no way I'm doing engineering. I'm not good at math at all. I don't like it. It's not something that, I enjoy. So I took a pass fail on that course, and I just did a pivot and I did business. And even when I did business, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do afterwards. I didn't know what I was going to do until like after I graduated. I know that sounds crazy. But I played 4 years of college soccer. So that was really
you're pretty serious then.
Yeah. I mean, that was really like my passion. That was my identity growing up. Like my dad loved soccer. So he really pushed me into like playing soccer. So like, all right, cool. And I love it. I was really good at it. I didn't get recruited at UCR, but I walked on and I worked my butt off and I became a starter after the second year, and I was a starter throughout. But yeah, that was my identity. And after 4 years of playing soccer, I tried to go pro. And I didn't make like the first team I tried out for in Atlanta, which is like a league right below the MLS. And, I wasn't really mad at the fact that I didn't get accepted, or I didn't make the team. So I was like, okay, like what do I want to do? I didn't really get to travel. I love to travel. Like my parents always, took us on really cool vacations growing up. And my dad, because of his business, would always be traveling. So we'd go with him.
Wait, what did he do for business?
When he came to the United States, he learned how to work on printing presses. So, like your really cool, like Genius Project brochure. Yeah. So like machines that would like print those out, business cards, letterheads, anything that had to be printed on a mass level. He knew how to work on those machines. But my dad, he never liked to be an employee. He was always like, I'm going to do shit on my own. He's like, I'm not going to have anybody tell me what to do. That just was his personality.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. So he basically was like, all right, I'm going to, I don't know how he really started buying and selling these types of machines. So he would buy the machines and he would export them to like different countries, because like these machines like AB Dix and Hamadas and Heidelbergs and all kinds like, I'm sure you've heard of Heidelberg, right? It's a really big name. But he would buy them here in the States and he would export them to, Mexico, to Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, India. Wow. And because those countries didn't have access to these, a lot of these machines. So he did really well. I mean, like, again, like we were very, very lucky to be raised, in a, like not in a high class, way, but we were like medium class and middle class, and it was fine. I mean, we had a really good childhood. But yeah, that's what he started his business.
That's actually really impressive. I was impressed when people move to a brand new country and they just start with something, and then it ends up being becoming much bigger. Like as much as complaining as I do about the struggles of our business, I'm like, it could have been a lot different.
Yeah. I know.
I was curious about, I know we're probably going to get to you traveling abroad, which is a really interesting part of the story, but the soccer, so what position did you play?
So I played defense. I really wanted to be like a center midfielder because my favorite player was Carlos Valderrama. He was the guy with the big poofy hair. I'm not sure if you remember him. He was like popular back in the 90s when I was like 10 years old. But anyway, but when I had like my huge growth spurt from like, I don't know, like 5'6", 5'8" to like 6'2" in high school, I lost all my touch and I had to like reinvent myself. So I really never gained like my technical ability. But anyway, I ended up playing defense in college. So like either center back or outside back.
Okay, cool. Yes. Nice. And then kind of interestingly, that was your passion for a while. But then when you tried out for pro, you mentioned that you weren't heartbroken by that.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't like, I knew if I really put my head down and like really focus, I can play pro, like I know that, if I put my mind on something, I'll do it. But it wasn't in me. Like I just wasn't really, I was like, okay, I didn't make it, and now kind of moving on. I probably did it just to kind of see if like that was like a path, and again, it was just kind of meant to be. Looking back, should I have tried to play? Maybe, I don't know. Because I love soccer. It was always fun, and you can always start your business in your late 20s or early 30s, but it just wasn't in the cards. But I really wanted to travel, right? So at that point I had 2 quarters left in college, and I was going to graduate in time in 4 years. And I was like, I want to study abroad, So I was looking into that fall of 2005. So I finished soccer in the fall of 2004. Going into 2005, I would have graduated in the spring or the summer of 2005. But I said, I want to study abroad. So that's when I luckily found Semester at Sea, which is a study abroad program where you travel around the world on a cruise ship with 650, college kids.
Oh, wow.
And I did that in fall of 2005. So I kind of extended my college an extra quarter. And then that's when I finished college.
Yeah, and I think you were the first person to tell me about this program. And I've only met one other person who participated in it, but 600 college students, not all from UCR, obviously. And
no, I was the only one.
You're the only one from UCR.
Is it just a massive party boat? I mean, pretty much, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you can imagine. Like, age range from like 19 to 22, and people that love adventure, people that love to travel. So the energy was just like it was fun. It was a blast, and honestly, that opened up my eyes to what I could like. All my best friendships are from, not all of them, but a lot of my best friendships are from Semester at Sea. I've gone to like 9, I think I counted the other day, it was like 9 weddings. I've gone to like 5 bachelor parties. I've traveled the world all because of these people, So I would say that impacted my life more than anything that I've done. It was Semester at Sea.
I mean, people talk about studying abroad like I did and Marina did, but usually it's to one country, or if you're an American, you travel abroad or study abroad rather to one country, let's say France, you spend a couple of weeks here and there going to all of the European countries that are right adjacent to it. But the what is it? Study by the Sea? Semester at Sea? Yeah. Is study by the sea. Semester at sea, which makes
there was not a lot of studying by the sea, that's for sure.
The Semester at Sea, it sounds like a study abroad, but like kind of on steroids. You have 600 people and it lasts for 1 quarter or 2 quarters?
Yeah, it's 100 days, 100 to 110 days.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so like a third of the year.
Wait, so how many countries did you get to see during that trip?
So we left from the Bahamas. We did Venezuela, Brazil, South Africa, Mauritius, India, Vietnam, Cambodia, Hong Kong, mainland China, Japan, Hawaii, San Diego. So we literally circumnavigated the entire world.
That's like 12 places.
Can we join now that we're older, or is there?
You can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can do what's called lifelong learners. So that's something that I want to do in the future for sure, is do that, because it was like the most impactful thing of my life was doing that.
That sounds really cool. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think from that one program, you probably saw more places than most people ever will in their lifetimes.
Yeah. It really opened up my eyes.
So, were you anxious before you left to, first of all, be gone from home for so long with a bunch of people you don't know and going in a bunch of places that you don't know? Like, I feel like, there could be a little bit of anxiety in doing that.
Yeah, there was, in every semester, there's probably a good amount of people that leave after the first leg because it's just not for them, Wow. For me, I was excited for the opportunity. Like when I first heard about it, there was only a couple schools that I could have gone because I was already like a fourth year senior. I was like, there's only a couple programs I can do that would, like the classes would actually work for my major, and semester C was one of them. But no, I don't think there was any. I was just excited. I was super excited to go travel. I didn't know anybody going on the boat or on the ship.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
There was one person. There was like a friend of a friend's girlfriend who I never knew. She went and we became friends, Jen. But I wasn't nervous. No, I was excited. I mean, it's so long ago, right? It was almost 20 years ago. But I'm sure there was probably some nerves going into it, but there was definitely more excitement than nerves.
Yeah.
What about the experience made it so life-changing?
It was the relationships for sure. I've met, everybody always asks about, which country did you like the most? But to me, the most impactful thing was just the relationships that we formed on that ship. And to this day, semester at sea looks at Follow 5 as one of those semesters of like, wow, you guys really have this weird concentration of like friends afterwards, because a lot of people don't have that. Mm-hmm. Or a lot of semester at sea alum don't have that same kind of core group. We have a huge core group. I mean, it's like, it used to be like 80 of us. Now it's kind of shrunk over time, wow. Which is kind of normal. But it's just the people. I mean, obviously, whenever you get off the boat and you're in the new country and you're there for 5 days and you can do whatever you want. Like you can go fly somewhere, you can, stay at hotels or you don't have to go back to the boat every night. You're free to roam around for about a week in each country, which is so amazing. But being able to it just puts you in I guess, different kind of not really difficult situations, but I think, more uncomfortable and just kind of unknown situations as a young person. Mm-hmm. And it really grows your confidence as a human being, and I think that's what I got out of it. I think semester at sea maybe made me a little bit too arrogant going forward, in my 20s. But I think it really gave me the energy to be like, I can do whatever I want. Like, yeah. And I was always the guy that would organize stuff. So we'd have a core group of guys and they're like, all right, let's go. And so I'm a big map guy. And back then we didn't have a cell phone with Google Maps, which I wish we did. That'd be amazing. But we have the old school maps and you lay it down and you look at stuff. And
so archaic.
I was really good at maps. Yeah. Right. I know, but it's so fun. Right. So I was a really big fan of maps. I just and I got that from my mom and just understanding where I'm at and where to go. But I think it just grew my confidence as a young adult.
Was it a little bit weird coming back to the States after being gone for 100 days and be like, what just happened? What now? Life is gonna be so boring now that I'm back. I'm sure it was strange.
It was the most depressing time of my life. Yeah.
Oh no.
It was. I was really depressed for about 5 to 6 months.
Wow.
It was so hard because I just, my identity was soccer. I stopped that. I did semester at sea. Everybody on semester at sea was probably, I think there was only like 15 of the 600 that were not going back to school. So I finished college on semester at sea. But everybody else was going back to college. So, on Facebook, see everybody going back to college and having a good time. And I'm like, I got to work, I got to work. I got to figure things out. And that was really hard for me. It was hard. But the good thing, I guess the silver lining was that, my girlfriend from semester SC that I met on semester SC, who was my next door neighbor, who happened to be half Colombian too, which is really cool. She was going to UCSB. in Santa Barbara. So I would go visit her, and she really kind of helped me, kind of get through this really difficult process.
Yeah.
But I would say I was probably, I'm not really a depressed person like that. That's not really natural for me. And I can't say I was like moping around, crying, but I can feel it. I was sad. I can feel it inside of me. I was sad. And back then I didn't really know how to process my emotions. I was young and, really didn't understand that like part of my body. But I think when I started real estate in April of 2006, I think I found something else to kind of like focus on instead of focusing on, oh, I miss my friends from the boat. I miss traveling. I miss all this. And I can't do that anymore. I got to get back into working. So it was a tough transition for sure. So
how much time was there between when you returned back to the United States to when you started doing real estate? Was it about that 6 months?
December to April. So 5 months.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. About 6 months. Yeah.
And then how did you get introduced to real estate?
I remember this like it was yesterday. So I was working for my dad in between, right? My dad, I was always working for my dad on weekends in the summertime just to make extra cash.
Planting trees.
And planting trees. No, I do everything. I mean, it was really like a blue collar job because my dad's business, he had a big warehouse in Rancho, like a 24,000 square foot warehouse where he would store all these machines, and then he would put them into big containers and he would ship them out. So we had forklifts, we had like jacks, I was wearing gloves, it was like a physical job, it wasn't like chill. And my dad was like, be at the warehouse at like 5 a.m. He went to the U.S. Army. He got drafted during Vietnam when he moved to the United States. So he was a general. He was a general. So I definitely got my work ethic from my dad because he's a really hard worker. Wow. And he's wake up really early in the morning, take cold showers. He would take cold showers in the like outside of the house too with like a hose.
Wow.
He's
pretty hardcore.
He's archaic.
Yeah.
Archaic, I love it. But so I was working for my dad, and then I knew I didn't want to do that. And my dad, he wasn't really pushing me to like be part of the business either. So that was good. I didn't really feel any pressure from his end. But my mom was in real estate, and she had been doing real estate for at that point 8 years. And in 2006, the market was on fire. 0% down. Stated income loans. Anybody can buy a house. I mean, like literally anyone could buy a house. It was the wild, wild west. And my mom, she had a great lifestyle. At that point, my parents were divorced. I was living at home by myself with my mom. And, she came up to my room one day, I forgot what day it was. And she came up, she's like, hey, do you want to like help me out and see if you like real estate? And I knew, so to give you context, before semester at sea, I had a summer, right? After UCR and before semester at sea, about 3 months. And I interviewed with jobs. And so I worked at Wells Fargo Financial, which is like an arm of Wells Fargo, which I don't know if it even exists anymore. But we would sell credit cards and subprime mortgages and all kinds of stuff. So it would be cold calling, right? And after semester at sea, I get an email from my old manager at Wells Fargo, and I told him that when I finish semester at sea, I come back work, And when he sent me the email, I didn't respond. I was like, I'm not going back. I am not doing a 9 to 5. It's not in me. It's like, I don't want to do it. Especially after traveling. Like I don't want to be confined to a 9 to 5 office and the rules and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So seeing my mom's lifestyle, I think really helped me get into real estate. So I'm like, hey, she makes good money. She's supporting herself. She's traveling a lot, and she's making good money. So I was like, all right, sure, Mom, let's do it. And I really am so grateful that she inspired me first to get into real estate, but not only that, but really helped me get into the business and really taught me the basics of real estate. And she's the one who pushed me to move to LA. She's like she always called me Polito, right? Like little Paul. And so Polito, you should go to LA and sell, luxury homes. I'm like, Mom, I don't know anybody over there. I don't, I was like, no, what am I going to do over there? I was like, I don't know anybody in Beverly Hills or in LA, even though I grew up in the suburbs, like in Pasadena, but I could have been from Wisconsin.
Yeah, they're pretty. People who don't know LA is so huge, and Pasadena. If you live on the west side, when people say Pasadena, it's like, oh wow, you're in another state, basically.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's so true. So I was like, I didn't really want to do it, you know. But my girlfriend at the time, Taryn, who was a girl I met on semester at sea, after she graduated college, she moved to Brentwood here in the west side. And so I would go visit her a lot. And I was, you know, I started to like LA more and more because, you know, I had her. And one of my good buddies, Jake, who was an officer at the Marine Corps, and he had finished his like rounds in Iraq, and he was living in downtown LA. And so I would visit him in downtown LA. So me and my best friend, Juan, who is in commercial real estate, and we were like, hey, let's move to downtown together. And let's, you know, it'd be fun. You know?
Nice.
So I worked for 3 years with my mom in Rancho, and I kind of grew the business there and kind of understood like the basics of real estate and kind of marketing. But the one thing I didn't like about working in Rancho, to be frank, was the architecture. And, you know, I think this goes back to what we're talking about earlier. I just kind of popped into my head right now is I didn't like selling tract homes. There was just like, it was like soul sucking to me almost in a way, you know, because I really liked Sierra Madre. And now that I'm kind of talking about it, it kind of brings up, you know, like, did I really look into architecture when I was a kid? I didn't, but I was just in such a beautiful city in Sierra Madre with beautiful old craftsman properties, you know, a lot of craftsman properties. And there was a house across the street off Ramona. It was a huge craftsman. It was gorgeous, a huge lot. And I think I just got used to that. And then when I moved to Rancho in 1997, as a freshman in high school, we moved into a tract home, and it was a tract community. And I was just like, I just didn't like it. You know, I didn't really understand it. I didn't really think about it. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. So then you moved to downtown LA. How
was living in downtown LA? It's pretty different than
your description of Sierra Madre.
I loved it, you know, because it was like my first place on my own that I was paying for. Living with my buddy. We had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, really nice place at the Pegasus. It was an old oil office building right across from the Standard Hotel, which is now I think closed. But I was excited. I was super pumped. You know, at this point, like my mom had now, you know, found or she met some guy in Colombia, you know, traveling over there, and she was like, I'm gonna get married to this guy, I'm gonna move to Colombia. So it was perfect timing. Like it was just kind of meant to be. So she moved to Colombia in 2009, and then I moved to LA in 2009, and it was a perfect, you know, separation of our business, you know. And at that time it was tough. I mean, we're talking about 2009, like it was like 2 years of it was like brutal, you know. Luckily I was really good at selling short sales. That's what we're doing, short sales and foreclosures. That's how we're making
our money. What is a short sale?
A short sale is when somebody owes more than what the property's worth. So then you put it on the market, and then you send the offer to the lender and say, hey, you know, these people are taking a loss on the property. Well, you're taking a loss on the property, bank. And the bank had, you know, thousands of these files, right? So it would take them forever to get back to you. So one short sale, like on average, would take me 8 to 12 months to close because of the banks and how much they have on their books. Yeah.
That's nuts.
So that's how I made money back then. So
this is diving into the details of that. So how does that work though? When what's owed on a property is greater than its value, how does that get resolved?
Well, it's basically like a foreclosure, right? So like somebody can, like if I bought a house, well, back then, right? People bought houses with 0% down, right? So they were just kind of banking on the values going up. Well, you know, 2008 crash and the values went down, and their 0% interest was going to change into 3 or 4 or 5% after a couple of years. So it was a teaser rate for the 0% down, and their interest rate was really low, but their rate would reset after a couple of years, right?
Right.
So once their rate reset, they were just like, I can't afford it, you know? So it was not only the 0% down stated income, it was also a very low teaser rate as well. So people were buying $500,000 houses and paying $1,500 a month. You know,
Yeah.
Crazy, like that. You know, like that. That's not sustainable. You know, and the banks, you know. I don't know if the banks knew what was going to happen, but it was just like, you know, it was just like free money going out. It was like what happened, you know, during COVID with the low rates too. You know, it's also causing an issue right now as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when you first started working with your mom in real estate, were there any aspects about real estate that stood out to you as being the most attractive? Was it the business side? Was it the working with people? Was it the architecture? Was it anything else?
I think it was, first off, it was the freedom. Like that to me was the most important part. Like I didn't want to be, you know, I didn't want to have a boss and be at a job from 9 to 5. Like that was for me the most important part. Even though I always tell my, you know, like all my, like my team and like all my friends, like I do have bosses. I have multiple bosses, all my clients, all my sellers and buyers, you know? So, you know, everybody has a boss, even the president, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it was the freedom of being able to, like, all right, I can grind really hard and make as much as I want. And I think that's the beauty of this business, is that if you really grind, if you have a good strategy and you're consistent and you're able to evolve with the times as well, which is really important, you can really make a lot of money. I mean, there's people in my office that are making, you know, $3-4 million, you know, and that's kind of where I want to get to. And that's in any market. You know, I'm part of a coaching program with Tom Ferry, and there's people there that are making that same amount of money in small markets like Rancho. You know, like I'm saying small in terms of like price range, small.
Gotcha.
But they're doing units. They're doing, you know, 100, 200, 300 units, which is crazy. I'm doing like 10 to 15. Right. It's a big difference.
Yeah. Huge difference. Hundreds of units. So when you move to LA, so how does something like that work? When you go off on your own as an agent, do you join a group? Is that the first move that you do, or do you do things like fully on your own?
I guess, again, the beauty of real estate, there's no right or wrong. There's people that are successful doing either one of those. You know, again, when I started, I was working with my mom, so we were Team Salazar.
I like it.
And then, and we have a great logo. It was like big Team Salazar. We're like hanging on the Team Salazar. I gotta post that somewhere. I had some of the old business cards. It was really cheesy, but it was cool. But when I came to LA, I knew that I wanted to work at Hilton Hyland, which is where I'm at now, because they were the premier luxury brokerage in LA. They sold all the big properties, you know, the Candy Spelling Estate, the Playboy Mansion. I mean, all the you know, the Chartwell Estate. So I wanted to join that company, but I knew that like nobody's gonna hire me. This kid from Rancho, he's, you know, 26 years old, doesn't know anything about LA real estate. So I said, all right, cool. I had saved up money from working in Rancho. You know, a decent amount. And I was always good with money. You know, in real estate, you have to be really good with your money. And I was always learned to, whenever I have a check, I always have, you know, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months of money saved up so that I can pay for the bills that I have now, so that I'm not feeling like, you know, stressed out. Right. So when I moved to LA, I think I had about 8 to 12 months, you know, of like cash reserves.
That's pretty good for a 26-year-old.
Yeah, but you know, back then you don't have a lot of bills.
That's true. That's true.
It's like now I would be like 1 month I would cover all, you know, 12. It's true. It's like, it's crazy how much money I'm spending now, and obviously inflation. But so I was like, all right, I want to work for somebody in LA as an assistant. I knew that it would be kind of like a 9 to 5 job, but in real estate is really not like a 9 to 5. It's loose, you know? So I sent my resume out to a ton of agents. And I got interviewed by a lot of people. And the last call I got was from this guy named Chad Rogers at Hilton Hyland. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Hilton Hyland. I'm like, this is what I want. Right. And he was on the show $1 Million Listing. And I didn't watch that show. So I didn't know him. I do my research. I'm like, all right, this guy is obviously successful. He's on this TV show. And we interviewed, and I got the job, and I was with him for 10 years. Wow. And then I left him about 4 or 5 years ago and started my own thing. But that's kind of my story here at Hilton Hyland, is that I started working with him as an assistant for, I would say, hardcore assistant work for like 2 years, and then kind of a hybrid role where I helped him out, and then I had my own stuff. And then for like I think of the 10 years I was with him, about, I think 5 or 6 years, we actually had like another assistant to help us out.
Wow.
Wow.
10 years is a long time. So
it is a long time. Yeah.
What made you decide to break off and do your own thing after 10 years?
So when I was working with my mom, I was super driven. I was like, all right, I want to grow this thing. And, it was me and her, And then when I was working with Chad, I didn't really feel like it was my thing. But I was making good money. I was making, well into the six figures, and but not enough to be like wealthy. In LA, you got to make a lot of money to be wealthy. It's like $500,000 or more, right? Like
LA's
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's so expensive. So back in 2018, I met this girl who was my girlfriend for about 5 years, JJ, and she had her own business. And I was like, man, like I see her like just struggling, but also, kicking butt and like, just working and just like really using all the resources that she has, friends, investors, her parents, to really, grow her swimsuit brand. And she did really, really well. So she really inspired me. I always give credit to her because, she wasn't really pushing me to do anything, but I was like, man, she's awesome. Like I got to get my shit together. And when I was working with Chad, I'll be honest, like I wasn't really like 100% like, grinding. I was traveling a lot. I was partying, and I really wasn't confident enough to leave him because I felt that I wasn't good enough. B, I wasn't from here, so I didn't have the connections.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that was a big part of me not leaving, because I was like, I don't think I can do it on my own. So when I met JJ, things got serious, and we started, she became my girlfriend. And after about, 4 or 5 months of being with her, I was like, all right, I got to make a change here. I gotta go out on my own. So I started to research like, what can I do as a, on my own in LA to get business? Because I did have some clients, but I didn't have a ton of clients. I made a lot of my money from his clients and then also some of my clients. So if I left, a lot of my income would just be completely zero, wiped out, right? But luckily, I had enough savings for, at this point, 2 years. So I'm like, I have 2 years of savings. Why am I not going out on my own? That's plenty of time to find business. So what I did is I started to research, like, all right, like who are the people that came to LA that, aren't from LA that like made it. There's a lot of people, like Santiago Arana, like Mauricio Mansky. I mean, a lot of the big people in LA that have made it big are not from LA, and they came here and they just, worked their way up and they grinded. So I took inspiration from those people, and I also like what were they doing, and a lot of them were getting coached, so I was like, all right, if they're getting coached, why am I not getting coached? Right. So I started to research like business coaches, and I interviewed 3 business coaches, and I really enjoyed working, or just enjoyed hearing Tom Ferry's podcast. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Tom Ferry. He's the biggest real estate coach in the United States. I'm not getting coached by him, but I'm getting coached by one of his coaches. He's got a big organization.
Yeah.
But I got to give thanks to Gary Gold, who sold the Playboy Mansion in the Chartwell estate. Like, he's a big agent at Hilton Hyland. Now he's at Coldwell Banker. But I asked him, I say, who's coaching you? Because I knew that he was getting coached. He's like, oh, I'm getting coached by this coach. Her name is Mary Jett. And I said, okay, cool. I was like, do you mind, putting us in touch? She's like, absolutely, sure. And Gary's awesome, So I'm like, all right, cool, thanks. So he put me in touch with Mary Jett, who is one of the best coaches at Tom Ferry. And they have 200 coaches. And Mary Jett was coaching John Grauman, who's a huge agent, Ben Balak, Gary Gold, here in LA, and a bunch of other people as well. So I talked to her. And she's like, yeah, I don't have any room in my schedule for you, but I can recommend you some other coaches, within the Tom Ferry ecosystem. I'm like, sure, cool, thank you. So I talked to those coaches, and I didn't like any of them. I didn't really connect with any of them. So I called Mary Jett. I said, Mary, you sent me all these 3 people. Honestly, I didn't connect with any of them. I really connected with you. I know that you're busy, but I'm very coachable and I'm ready to grind. Like, can you please coach me? Like, I'm hungry to get coached by you. And she's like, okay. Sure, let's do it.
Wow.
And literally coached with her for 2 to 3 months. I left Chad after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe 3 months after that, I had my first assistant, full-time assistant.
Wow.
And so she just like, it was just like a rocket ship, you know, and it was like a quantum leap. It was crazy. It was just like, I just went to this next level, you know, and I had all this experience from working with Chad, and I'm very grateful for my time with him, because he really exposed me to doing big deals. I mean, we did in 2012, we did 2 of the biggest deals in LA, you know, one in Beverly Park for 21 million, 56 Beverly Park for 21 million, and a property, I think 7133 Birdview in Malibu for about 21 million too, as well. So he exposed me to working with business managers, attorneys, with high net worth individuals. And I think that gave me the confidence as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that was my journey to working on my own, was, you know, my ex-girlfriend now, JJ, Tom Ferry coaching, Mary Jet. And I only had Mary Jet, unfortunately, for about 8 months, because then Tom hired her as the head of all coaches.
Oh, no.
So yeah. So I was like, no, I'm just getting started with you. We're doing all this stuff. You're leaving me now. But no, I'm lucky enough to have like Jeff Mays, who's an amazing sales coach, and he helped me get to that next level. And right now I have another coach. Her name is Coach Tasha, who's also as well very, very good. So I'm just very fortunate to be surrounded by really good coaches. And it was so weird, because like I've always been coached in soccer my whole life. And until 2018, I was like, coaching, like that's like lame, you know, like I'm gonna coaching, like I know what to do, but obviously I don't know what to do. I'm very, very grateful for Tom Ferry too, who has created a phenomenal mastermind, which is what it really is. It's a big mastermind. And we just learned the strategies that work for all the, like, you know, from all the top agents around the United States. I learned what their strategies are, you know, and what works for them. How do they get business? How do they help their sellers? How do they help their buyers? Right. And how to market yourself to get more business. So it's been a fun journey so far. I've been with them for now 5 years.
It's a crazy story. So I have like a lot of questions.
All right, cool.
The sort of working semi-chronologically, the first one is like, so what are some of the biggest differences between working with clients, buyers or sellers who are in you know, the $5 million house range, $2 million house range, versus the ones that are 15, 20 million and that kind of break? Because that's a huge difference. Was there anything when you started working at that higher tier where things were different?
Yeah, the stakes are higher. The stakes are higher, so that means there's more competition. So in order to get those clients, you have to go all out. You know, you know, we have, I think it's like, I don't know, tens of like 20 or 30, 40,000 agents in LA, you know.
Wow.
There's so much competition, you know.
I know.
But at the top tier, it is even more competitive, you know, because every deal is $250,000, you know, $500,000, right? So you'll do whatever you can to get those deals. So I think that's the biggest thing. And, you know, and the clientele, not always, but the clientele is probably, you know, is usually a little savvier, right? Yeah. They've bought and sold multiple houses, so they know what they're talking about, and they're probably business owners or CEOs. Yeah. So they're very sharp. So you got to be on your game.
Are you less likely to interact directly with the client for houses like that, and more likely to just interface with their assistant and attorneys?
Yeah. When you're getting into the 10 plus, I would say, yeah, there's a 50-50 chance that you're going to be working with somebody else because they're so busy. And that, I mean, you'll talk to them for sure, but it's not as often as, sellers in a lower price range.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think also at that tier, obviously, that individual has multiple properties. It's very unlikely they have just one. And I mean, I can understand what you're saying with the stakes and the competition for sure. I could also see where a lot of the pressures that come with working with, let's say, a buyer who is about to purchase their forever home, and the house is about $2 million, relative to LA context now. There's a lot of kind of not constraints, but criteria and other things that come with that kind of sale and transaction versus someone who clearly has the money to buy another $15 million property. Like there's less pressure actually for those houses in many ways than the ones that are the 2 million range forever home that has to fit all this stuff perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, look, every buyer has their criteria, and some buyers are a little bit loose and some are just like, they're really like pigeonholed into what they want. And, the one thing I tell buyers when I'm working with them is you have to be flexible. You're never going to find the perfect house, like, it's like finding a partner in life, it's like, you have to like, what are the things that you really need? And then what are the things that you want, and then, let me work towards that. But this is a tough market right now. There's the inventory is super low, rates are high. The upper echelon, price ranges, 10, 20 million plus, it's really slow right now. Inventory is really high. The market in between, 2 to 3 is hot, because again, that's like the entry level, which is crazy to say. But it's like entry level, pricing for a single family home here in the West Side or and like the city of LA, kind of where I work at.
The other thing I was wondering is, so you broke off and did your own thing. Oh yeah. So the idea of coaching is so fascinating because to your point, you said from whatever age to whatever year, the idea of coaching was not really within your vision, and would seem ridiculous if someone proposed it to you. And I would say that most people probably have that same mentality, and even a lot of business owners probably have the same mentality of, I don't need a coach, I could just figure it out on my own. But you found it to be extremely helpful, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was I knew if I started coaching, they're going to make me do things that I didn't really want to do, which is like cold call, door knock, and I think there was just a fear. I think it's what it is. It's a fear of doing things that are going to push you and make you feel uncomfortable. And I think that's what really, when I was going like, I was just like plateauing for like 10 years, and then I went like this because I started doing things that made me uncomfortable, and now it's like, it's constant, like if you would ask me 5 years ago to go on a podcast and do an interview, I would have been really, really nervous, but now I'm excited. Like, let's do it. And now I'm on video, like if you look at my first video at 1911 Beverly Drive, like my first like property tour video, I was like Frankenstein. I was like a robot, And so I look at that video, I'm just like, who is that person? And like, but then now it's like, now I'm a little bit more loose, but I'm still working on it, And that's what I love about the coaching program is that they constantly pushing you like, all right, what's that next thing you can do that makes you feel uncomfortable? Because that's where the real growth comes in, And so now it's like, all right, what can I do now? I've done a lot of things that make me feel uncomfortable. How do I get to that next level? And that's, like speaking in front of people, right? That still makes me feel uncomfortable, but I'm starting to do that now. Like I was telling you, last week we interviewed William Hefner and Richard, Mannion and Jesse Harrison. These guys built they designed some of the, LA's biggest properties, coolest properties. And they asked me to be the moderator. And I was like, I've never been a moderator before, but I was like, let's go. Let's go. I'm down. I'm down to do it because I'm like, I know that if it makes me feel weird inside, I got to do it.
You see, Marina, that's
that's how I moved to the States. I did something I never wanted to do.
That's true.
Growing up, I always tell people, growing up, I would go on like field trips with school, when you're like 8, 10 years old for 3 days, by the ocean, you're away from your parents. I would cry every night in my bed because I wanted to be home. I was like, I don't want to be here with these people. And now look at me. I live on the other side of the world. I left everything behind. So, right, like you got to kick yourself in the butt once in a while to move forward. Yeah. And the coaching is very interesting because I think sometimes people think that the coach is going to kind of like do the work for you or tell you exactly what to do, when it sounds like, at least in your case, that the coach was just kind of like there to lift you, to give you the confidence that you probably already had in you, but you never really like put out. which seems like the best way of coaching is not telling people how to do things exactly, but just kind of like encourage them to do more than what they've been doing. So I think that's very interesting.
And not only that, but like I don't know how many clients they have, but they have these big events. Like I was just in one in Orlando like 2 weeks ago, and you get to meet other people that are doing these cool things too. Yeah. So so it's like, again, it's a massive mastermind. So like right now, in about an hour from now, I'm going to be having one of the Tom Ferry clients like me that is in Long Beach. Her name is Gia Silva. She's going to come and coach my team for half an hour about what's made her successful, And so we have those opportunities to meet people that are doing big things. And I love that. I love to surround myself with people that are doing big things, because again, like you've heard the saying, like whoever you surround yourself is who you're going to become. Right.
Yeah. The mastermind approach is very interesting too. And I think that's something that we are noticing architects are starting to do more and more. And it's interesting to notice that different industries are getting more into it. It feels like there is a need to kind of like come together as a community within a profession and just help each other out rather than stab each other in a way, which is interesting with real estate, because I think from an outsider point of view, it's perceived as being very competitive. But it also sounds like there is a lot of resources that are shared among people from that community.
Yeah, so, what is that?
How does that work? Right?
Well, I got to be honest. I think this is why I love this coaching program and the community around it. It's because here in LA, it's like nobody wants to share what they're doing, because it's like you're in the market, you're in the same market, right? Mm-hmm. But with these people, they're from all over the place. I mean, there's some from LA, but they're from all over the place. And Tom always says, look, we're not talking about anything new. All these strategies are things that you can find online. And even if you share them, it doesn't mean people are going to do them. Yeah. So like I've come to the conclusion over the last, since I started coaching with Tom Ferry, is that I'm going to give value. I'm going to tell people what I do, because at the end of the day, it's like, they're probably not going to do it.
That's true.
And if I tell them what I'm doing, I may inspire them, and it's just about giving back. Like I'm learning from all these people, I'm going to give back as well. Yeah. So that's my mindset. Like I want to give back, but you're right. Like here in LA, there's very few people that are willing to, come together and share, even though, hey, you work in Santa Monica and I work in Brentwood, or I work in Mar Vista and Venice, and we're like not in the same markets, but it's kind of weird. And I think most agents don't want to share. That's just kind of their mindset, so that's not, kind of my mindset. I'm about sharing. Yeah. And even people in LA, like I have a team. I'm telling my team what I do all the time. I want them to succeed. And in any given day, if they want to leave, they're welcome to leave. They're all independent contractors, and they'll leave with all the information that I've given them, and hopefully that'll empower them.
It's interesting. I think there's been a shift, as Marina said, within our profession, the architecture profession, toward more of that. And I think it's a few things. I think one, it's a generational shift. Yeah. I think and certainly the younger generations are just far more interested in the mastermind mindset and the sharing and caring mindset, rather than competition in a negative position, which historically has always been more of the way that architecture has occurred as a profession.
But I think also in terms of, like you talked about generation, in terms of time too. I mean, I feel like back in the day, people had time to figure it out, because maybe there was less competition, maybe there was less of a urge of things to move faster. But in today's age, things are moving so fast that you don't have the time to just sit around and figure it out, because you're gonna miss like 5 boats of it. You got to get into it.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's super, super competitive. Especially right now in this market. It's like I see things all the time. I'm just like, agents are desperate right now. So it's just kind of part of the nature of the business.
So are you mostly on the buyer side or the seller side?
Seller side. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
So how does that work? Like, how do people decide who to sell their house with?
How do they find an agent?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot of different strategies, right? I mean, I think one of them is what we call like a geographic farm. It's like you pick an area and you start working the area, and you door knock and you cold call them, and you drop off flyers, and maybe you do like a seminar, like a homeowner seminar, right? And you like work this kind of geographic farm. Like, this is my farm. Like, I know the off markets. I know who's looking at lease. I know all the sales, and you're like the knowledge broker, right? So people will hire you if you're like farming that area. The other way of doing it is like I call a lot of expired and canceled listings. So that's kind of one of my lead pillars. So you want to have at least 4 lead pillars, like 4 different buckets of where your client are coming from.
Yeah.
But expired, canceled are houses that have been on the market that haven't sold, and they're now off the market. So then you call them and you cold call them, but they're getting called by like
a lot, hundreds
of people every single day for like a full month, and they're just like so annoyed. So it's really hard to break through all that noise. And then the other way is your sphere of influence, and referrals. You can do events too. I mean, there's so many different avenues, networking as well. But if you have a home and you want to sell it, you're probably going to look at your sphere first.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to think about like, who's the last person that you've talked to that is a real estate agent, and you're probably going to think of that person.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm doing everything I can to like build my brand. Like, I'm doing like YouTube. I'm trying to do a lot of like press opportunities. I'm doing things like this as well. That, I may not see something right now from this, but I think in the future, hey, it's just getting my name out there and getting my brand out there is important, and that just kind of grows, your whole team, right? Because like, these guys are everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So we're starting to get noticed now within the agent community, which is really nice. But now we want to get noticed within the community of homeowners.
Right. The it's an interesting thing with the more exposure one has, the more perceived expertise there is. Mm-hmm. And obviously in this case, there is expertise, but I was talking with someone recently, and they have a business. I forget the conversation, but we were talking about getting clients, as business owners always talk about. And I remember reading this thing that if you have 3 touch points that occur with the client before you meet, that the chances of you getting the client go way up by 3 times. So 3 touch points means that prior to them meeting you, they've heard of you in 3 different ways. Maybe one is a referral, one is they saw a podcast, and another is they saw an article, or whatever those 3 might be. But if you have those 3 before meeting them, then you're in a completely different tier compared to all of the other folks, all the other professionals they're meeting with, because just because of the way the human mind works, those 3 touch points signifies to that client, this is someone who is an expert, because I've heard of them 3 times. Why would I have heard of them for 3 times unless they were an expert and revered in their, profession?
Yeah. And that's like the question, like you said, of every business owner is like, how do you convert people into being your client? How do you create the trust? It's all about the trust, right? And it's so hard to do that on a one-off, without them even knowing you, So, and again, in a market with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of agents, like, how do you get to that top level? It's like, it's a lot of work. But it's fun. It's a game. It's really just a game.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really fascinates me with real estate agents and folks like yourself specifically is I'm always thinking about it compared to and relative to our profession of architecture and what we do as our office, but architecture offices in general. And I think that sometimes, how do I put this, amongst architects, that real estate agents sometimes get a kind of a bad rap because of you're in the sales business, which is the business that we're all in, frankly. But I also think that the real estate agents in general, and ones like yourself specifically, are like, there's a lot that architects can learn from, because there's the business mindset. There's the mentality of like, I'm going to get coaching. I'm going to do everything I can to excel and get clients and help my clients and all the stuff that you've been mentioning. And I do find in the architecture community, architects are much more reserved. And I think a lot of them, even to this day, still perceive all of that stuff as being sort of sleazy. it has that kind of that feeling, that taste in their mouths. And I'm like, it's not. If you're a good professional, you're a good person, then you should be trying to get as many clients as possible, because you assume, therefore, you can actually help them. You're not a bad architect or a bad real estate agent. But also, kind of to Marina's point too, with the way things work now, you have to engage in that mindset. Otherwise, I don't know, you're just relying on dumb luck that something will happen. That doesn't seem to me like a great strategy.
No, and if you want to be successful, like you have to do 200% of what you should be doing. And if you're an architect and you want to do better work, you gotta have a bunch of project opportunity to be able to get better and better and better.
And I think also in our case, not to go on, but I think that the problem that architects architects have as a group is we're not good at conveying to the average person what it is we offer as a value and what's our value, right? And that's the number one thing you have to learn to convey when you have a business is what value you're bringing. Otherwise, no one's going to pay you $1,000, $10,000, $100. No one's going to pay you anything if you don't do that. And I think so I think on our side, our profession has not been doing a very good job of that. And I think it also ties into this, again, the mentality of like, well, I don't want to think about what I do as sales or business development, because those seem I'm too respected as an architect. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, speaking about money is, depending on what profession you're in, it could be kind of the topic that's a little bit taboo, which I feel like architects are getting better at talking about money with their clients, because it is at the core of what we can design and build. So we need to talk about it. Mm-hmm. On the other side, realtors you have to talk about money, because it's, it's also at the core of the services that are being provided.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the expectation on the clients that you see since, let's say, COVID era have changed in terms of how much they're expecting to sell or buy properties for?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always say in real estate, like sellers are always, 6 to 12 months behind the current market, and like in terms of their mindset, it just, things are not flying off the shelf. Yeah. There's a new mansion tax. But going to your last point, it's like, a lot of real estate agents are sleazy, so it's like, it's really hard to like convey like, hey, I'm here for you. Like I want to give you value. I want to support you. So it's like, how do we do that in like an hour of time or half an hour? It's like, they can also say, oh, this guy's just BSing me. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's also tough for us as well, is that we have a bad rap because of a lot of the bad people in our business. And it's just unfortunate. There's the level of, I guess, requirements to get into this business is very low. It's not like, if you want to become a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that, where you're making a lot of money, you have to go through all the schooling and all this stuff. But real estate, it's like, pass the exam, 6 months later, you're a real estate agent, you can sell a $100 million house, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're an expert. And so that's I think the tough part is we're having to kind of deal with those bad actors. And now everybody perceives us as this one big group of like, oh, this is how you guys are all, and I get that all the time. Yeah. I get that all the time. And that's really tough.
Yeah. The perception that the average person has of your profession and you as a professional, what you do that's a whole subject unto itself. And it's one of the issues that I think all professions face, for sure. I think ours definitely does. I mean, you survey, let's say, 10 people, and you ask them, what does an architect do? You're going to get 10 completely different answers. That's true. It's so hard because it's like, and it's hard too, because I find, you were talking about how do you connect with someone within the first 1 hour meeting, and maybe that's the only shot you have, or the first shot you have, and maybe the only one. That's also such a good question. It's something I'm thinking about constantly, because of course, after practicing for like, I don't know how many years now, and having how many years of school and having practice in other states and done all these projects, this is me conveying my weaknesses. I have sometimes a really hard time of how do I take all that experience and condense it into an hour, but then only pull out the good stuff that makes sense for this person, but also not sound like an encyclopedia that's going to bore someone to death, which I love to do. Like there's just a lot of things happening in that 1 hour, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah, there's a good book. It's called the Social Styles Handbook. Really easy to read. Probably read it like in a couple hours, but it talks about like the different personalities and how to move those people from, you know, where you want them to move, like, you know, from uncertain about you to like certain about you, you know, like how to build trust with the different personalities. Cause you have the drivers, you have the amiables, you have like the influencers, and you have the analyticals. And every one of those 4 personalities are completely different. Analytical wants to hear all the numbers. Drivers don't want to hear all the numbers. They just want to know like what the end goal is. Like there's like the CEOs, the business owners. Amiables need somebody else to help them, you know, come to, you know, an answer or like, you know, a resolution. And then you have the influencer who wants to hear, you know, wants you to tell them how good they're, you know, how great they are.
Yeah.
Right. So understanding every social style and every personality is really important when it comes to sales. And it's psychology.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, it's all it is. Right. So that's what I'm learning as well all the time is like, all right, I always try to identify who they are before I meet them. You know, like I'll Google them, you know, on LinkedIn, let's see who they are. If they're a doctor. Okay. They're probably gonna be a little bit more analytical. If they're a business owner, they're probably gonna be more of a driver. If they're a CPA, they're for sure going to be analytical. So you start to understand these different personalities, and then you can shift the way you communicate to them so that they understand you more.
So much work. Part of it too is that some days I'm like, I don't care. I just want to do cool architecture. I don't, you know.
Yeah, there is so many other things we have to know.
I know. Being a business owner is like that. You have to be the marketer, you have to be in sales, and you have to be operations. All 3 of those things. It's like you're probably only good at one of them, right? So yeah, it is. This is yeah.
That's the key too. I think at some point you realize that the game that you have to play is also about finding the good people that do something better than you do, or do what you can't, and then just partner with them or bring them on board or whatever it is.
Perfect transition to my next question.
Okay.
Yeah. So how big is your current team?
So we have 4 agents besides me. So 5 of us total agents. And then we have an operations manager. We have a part-time social media manager that manages all of our social media, like posting and all that stuff.
Yeah, you guys do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he's in Dublin. And then we found a great video editor / graphic designer in the Philippines. She works about 25 hours a week.
Okay.
So
that's a lot.
That's what we have right now. It's a lot. It's a lot.
25 hours a week, that's a lot.
Yeah, how much of your time of the week is dedicated to just producing content, putting it out there?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Versus like actually boots on the ground, you know, like doing sales and finding clients. Like how does your like weekly schedule looks like?
Yeah. Well, I wake up early in the morning, 4:30 to 5.
Oh, wow, okay.
Do my, you know, like I'm early. Like I'm a morning guy now. I never was, but I'm a morning guy now because I really want to get, you know, what I want to get done in the morning. It's like my quiet time, you know. But I'm in the office around 7:50 in the morning, and then we have our team meeting, our operations meeting with my ops manager from 8 to 8:30, 8:30 to 9, a team meeting with the agents, 9 to 12, 3 hours of calls. So follow-up calls, you know, cold calls, calling homeowners, expired calls. And then from 12 to 1, I do some operations work and kind of like, you know, talking to my operations manager about certain things I want to get done. I usually go for a walk for half an hour because I need to like decompress after, you know, talking to, you know, 20 people on the phone. And then like 1 to 1:30, I talk to my graphic designer, video editor in the Philippines, and we go over kind of what we want to do. And then the rest of the day is open to either door knocking in certain areas that I want to, you know, go after, or doing, you know, projects, you know, like, so we're always working on some kind of project, like, you know, workflows or, you know, email campaigns or text campaigns. We're always working on that kind of stuff. So we're always growing the business. So there's never like a time between 8 and 5 that I'm like just chilling, unfortunately, just like just really highly focused. And then, you know, in between 1:30 and 5, I'll do content, right? So I'm trying to do at least an hour of content per week. And that will, then my video editor will like cut that into reels, and she'll do the YouTube video, like long form.
Yeah.
So that's my schedule right now.
And so we have to talk about, we're coming up on the time, but we have to talk about you started a podcast and all these other social media content creation endeavors, and you've recently completed a studio, which is really cool, which is what you're in right now. Which is why it looks so good too. Yeah. It's like the best video we've had as a guest, I think.
Thank you.
What prompted you to start it, and just talk us through, it?
Yeah. This is all like coaching, and Tom always says, like, build your brand online. This is the easiest way to build your brand. And we're really highly focused on YouTube right now, because YouTube is the second largest search engine, right? It's owned by Google. And, if you search on Google, you'll get videos from YouTube, right? So we're trying to create good evergreen videos that will last 10 years, that were like, they'll get a lot of views and hopefully get phone calls. We've gotten a couple leads, but not a lot from YouTube. So I can't say we're successful yet, but we're growing it. And it takes time to like grow the, your YouTube channel. But in the beginning, that's the hardest thing for agents, is to be on video, right? So that was really probably one of the hardest things for me, was to transition from, like doing difficult things, which is like making phone calls, and then now I got to be on video. It's like, what else you gonna ask me to do?
You're gonna be on TV next. Watch out.
Then I gotta be on TV, right? It's like, so.
Oh gosh, that would be so difficult.
but honestly, it's the video part not only grows your brand, but it also makes you do the most uncomfortable thing, which is be on video, And now when you're on video, now you're much better at presenting at a listing appointment or with clients, and then, I always send them like, here's my YouTube channel, so they can see me now on video. And that's like another touch point, like you were saying, David, earlier. It's like, now they see me on video, right? Like, oh, this guy is on video. He has a great listing videos and pretty good content, right? And so now they see me as the expert because I'm on video, right? So that it was all from the coaching program.
Interesting. Well, you said that it took practice, or you were uncomfortable to start with, but I don't think anyone watching this would know that it was ever the case in the past for you. You seem quite comfortable with it, or you're pretending very well.
Again, it just, you just have to start. It's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Nobody's like, I don't think there's a few people that are like really good on camera. Like my sister, I'm sure she'll be good, because she was always in front of the camera when I was a little kid. Yeah. And I was like, literally, I was the shy kid, and I would have a really bad stutter growing up. So that was really hard for me as well. But you start and you just get better. That's it. Yeah. It's like anything else. It's a muscle. You just get better and better and better at it. And then you become more natural, and you don't get nervous, and you get excited.
When we first started doing video, which was not until like halfway through the life of the podcast, it was weird.
It was bad.
It was bad. It was all kinds of bad. Sure. The first day, the first video we recorded and we put out some bits, I remember watching myself and thinking, why am I doing that? No one ever told me I do this weird thing with my hand. I'm like, why am I doing that? It's so strange. Stop that. Yeah. I'm like, how many years have I lived? No one ever told me, don't do that with your hands. It's distracting. The final question
it makes you feel very, very vulnerable. I think that's the hard part. It just makes you feel very vulnerable.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's very uncomfortable, but also if you can do it, you're one of the few people who are doing it. Not everybody would do it. So it already puts you in like a different category. Then you get better at 100%. It and puts you in the next better category. And it's a work in progress. And I think it's worthwhile trying.
It's definitely a work in progress.
For sure.
The final question that I always like to ask is, what is your favorite building?
My favorite building? Oh, that's a great question. What is my favorite building? It's funny because I asked the same question last week to like William Hefner. What's your favorite? The first thing that just popped in my head, and I'm not sure if it's the favorite one, but I'm going to go with it. It's my gut, right? Is the Chemisphere. I sold a house just below the Chemisphere. The John Lautner house, that really cool like spaceship looking house. Yes. The one on the movie Charlie's Angels. But it's in Hollywood Hills, and it's overlooking the valley, so it's looking north. But it was close to like Jessica Biel and Justin Timberlake's house on Torreyson. I sold a house on Torreyson as well. So whenever I drove by that house, I look up and I see the Chemsphere, and it's such a cool house.
That's pretty cool.
You know, and it's owned by that guy that owns all those cool books. Tash, I forgot. I don't know how to.
Oh yeah,
Tashin. There you go. So he owns that house.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
But that's a really cool house, and it just popped into my head.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a favorite, to be honest. I mean, I love Spanish architecture. I love craftsmen. One of my first houses in Pasadena was a craftsman, so I love craftsmen. I like modern houses, but warm modern houses, you know, with a lot of wood. I'm not a big fan of like the really modern cold houses with tile and like a lot of tile. I like warmth. But we're so lucky to be in a melting pot of cool architecture here in Los Angeles, for the most part, not always, but like I went to Barcelona last year for the first time, and I was like blown away. I was like, this is such a cool city for architecture. I mean, it was so cool. Yeah. So I've definitely developed I want to say a passion yet, but I would say like a keen eye, or just like enjoying architecture over time.
Yes, we're transitioning you over to our side.
Let's go.
Paul, thank you so much for making the time on a Friday morning, starting this off. It's a great way to end the week. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me over. I really appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching this video on YouTube. If you like what we're doing, then please support our show by hitting that subscribe button.
You can also find us on most of the social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're mostly on Instagram. And you can reach out to the hotline, 213-222-6950. You can send a text message or leave a voicemail if you have any reaction to this recording, any questions you might have, or guest suggestion. Feel free to send it our way.
Cool. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.